Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Awesome. Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm here with Spencer Brassard. How are you today?
I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm in Kona, Hawaii vacationing, so I'm chill. I'm happy.
I am channeling that and living vicariously. And when you said that, I was like, I just want to come see you right now. Jump in and tell me about your parenting journey.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, a lot of like little girls played with Barbies. I just wanted dolls. I just wanted to be mom, right? I just was like being a mom. I was kind of taught that inadvertently being a mom is the most important thing a woman can do for herself and her body. And so that's what I wanted to do more than anything in the world. And that's who I wanted to become for most of my life. And so I found the love of my life young I think I was just about before turning 18.
Wow.
And in Canada, that's a legal, I'm almost an adult in Canada, right? When you are turning 18. We waited a few years, got married, and we were like, hey, I'm in my early 20s. Let's make some babies. It didn't happen. And after a year of trying, I was beside myself, right? But that mark, people really start to look and consider the medical route, but that just didn't feel right to me. I kind of just had this intuitive knowing that my fertility journey was here to teach me something more, maybe something more spiritual, or teach me skills that I didn't have. And when it came to the intention of wanting kids, of course I wanted that in my heart, but I really wanted to just keep up. I really wanted to just be like, oh, this is what's next. I wanted to check the boxes in my life. And I think looking back now, what happened was I was tying so much of my worth to becoming a mother. And as soon as we tie our worth to something, it gets really hard to get that thing. It's like the universe's game with us, right? We're like, oh, once I get that, then I'll be enough. Then I'll be worthy. It becomes a lot harder to get that thing. And I kind of really love that design, to be totally honest with you, because then the lesson and the growth and the catalyst of my fertility journey was learning that I was worthy as a woman, regardless of getting pregnant, regardless of what my body was performed. Right. And that was my journey into writing my book, Fertile Ground, into beginning my life coaching business. I actually became a fertility coach before I got pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, because I was like, I'm not suffering anymore. I had went through my life coach certification. I had learned these mind body tools. I didn't have this raging anxiety anymore. I wasn't succumbed with worry every minute of every day. I was really enjoying and loving my life, regardless of the circumstance of not being pregnant yet. And so I was like, wow, man, more women need to know about this.
Well,
so
that's the biggest thing, right? Like, we just don't talk about it.
Yes.
I want to ask you a little bit about infertility,
infertility
because I know you worked through a lot of this, but I went through infertility for about 10 months up to IVF. And when IVF was on the table, I was like, I'm done. I was maxed out on 250 milligrams of Clomid.
Yeah.
I was on Provera. I was on a cycle, very scheduled, sex every other day, basal body temperature every morning, felt like a psycho on medication. And you go through 7-day surgeries, which I put that in air quotes, because although you may be awake for them and they tell you can just go right back to your life, they're physically hard on your body. They're doing biopsies of your cervix and your uterus and flushing your fallopian tubes and doing all these things to try to figure out what's the hitch in the giddy up, like, where is this a problem? And I felt like less of a woman.
Yeah.
I struggled with like that shame and guilt that I was broken. My body was broken. And also, I had a hysterectomy at 33, and it was the same thing. Like, if my breasts are augmented and I have no plumbing, well, how am I even a woman? And I think that there are those things that we go through with miscarriage, infertility, hysterectomy where we really stop and question. And I think the word for me was shame. I
Yes,
felt a lot of shame. And I
100%.
remember going to therapy and they talk about like hurt, anger, sadness, and nothing. Yeah, I mean, there may have been little bits of that, but someone said the word shame once, and I was like, oh, holy cow, that's my word for the day. What did you feel in that? And how did you get through it healthy enough to become a fertility coach without having even been able to get pregnant? And I definitely want more of your infertility journey because yours wasn't 10 months like mine.
No, it was 8 years.
Girl, I just want to hug you so hard. And it was
Yeah,
IVF
well,
for 8 years.
no, it wasn't. No, I
Okay, okay.
didn't. I did. Well, let's keep people with
Yes.
suspense
Okay, okay,
and
okay.
tackle the shame. Shame. Oh, it's something that is kind of, I talk to it with my girls in my program. It's like this cloak that we put on ourselves to hide in a corner in fear of feeling less than everyone else because we don't fall in line with society standards, right? And it is a very dark, um, icky emotion, shame. And, there's guilt, which is I did something wrong, and shame is I am wrong,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a,
right? And there's a
yep.
big difference between the two. I did something wrong. It's quite clean. It's a clean emotion. It's okay,
Hmm.
I'm learning from this experience. I am wrong.
Right.
Oof, right? It's a lot that sits a little bit heavier on the body.
Yeah.
And to be totally honest with you, I'm not free of shame today. I don't think any of us are. But the beautiful thing is what outs shame is realizing everyone has it.
Mhm.
And so in that, we can kind of understand that it is part of the collective humanity because we want to fit in, we want to belong. And we have these thoughts and these beliefs that make us feel like we don't. But
Right.
in understanding shame and realizing, first, I think it's like the validation of, okay, this is something I have based on our cultural conditioning. It's not because there actually is something wrong with me. It's because I've been taught through my most likely perfectionism, which is a
Mm.
lot of what I coach women on. Like,
Okay. Okay.
I'm not perfect, right? And perfect is a moving target. You'll even as soon as you think you landed on it, it goes, oh wait, what about this? Right. And that was the fertility journey for me. It's like, if I just do everything perfect, then I'll get pregnant. Like, oh my God,
That's
why?
all you have to do.
That's all I have to do. Like,
It's
come
easy.
on, just do it. And like I said, it's a moving target. I feel like perfectionism is, you're playing this video game till 3 in the morning. You've Cheetos in your hair is greasy. And you're trying to figure out how to win this game of perfectionism, but there's no winning level programmed into the game. And so the only way to win is to stop playing and to learn how to love yourself through all of your imperfections, your quirks. So, for example, I'm a highly sensitive person, right?
Okay.
It's kind of coined as HSP. It's just, I feel things really deeply. I feel the good really deeply. Like last night, I was looking at the stars and I was just in awe, but I feel the pain really deeply. For example,
Mhm.
there was a man on the beach the other day who was having trouble breathing and it just rocked my world for a little while. And so I used to look at my sensitivity as something bad. Like, why can't I just get over shit like everyone else, right? Why can't
Mm.
I just move on? But then I had my son, and he's the same. And he needs a mom who understands that sensitivity. And the world needs people who feel things deeply so that they have empathy and compassion to create change. So for years, I shamed myself for not getting over things as much as quickly as my husband did, for example. But it actually ended up being one of my gifts. And so I think in overcoming shame, we have to understand that everyone has their hard, everyone has shame, and that we all have our imperfections that are actually kind of perfect for us and what
Yeah.
we're meant to do in this lifetime. And so this, when you talk about the body in particular, that is a very particular subject because a woman in her body is subject to the patriarchy and all of these beliefs we've garnered up about what our bodies are supposed to be like and how they should be quote unquote performing. But, in essence, I developed really deep intimacy with my body that where I cut all those strings attached to her needing to do what I wanted her to do. I feel like with our bodies, we can create a very transactional relationship where it's like, I'll only love you if you do this. So I'm going to just push you aside and I'm going to keep you at an arm's length until you
Yeah.
do what I want you to do. And I don't know any relationship that works when you approach it in that way. So,
Right.
so, when I think when it comes to shame, it's dismantling this belief that we need to be perfect in order to be lovable, in order to be valuable.
I also think that as women, I used to do this talk where I said, yeah, I came here today and I looked in the mirror and I'm like, wow, I look pretty great. I mean, I look better if I lost 5 pounds. And no big deal because we say those things all the time. But then I went prom dress shopping with my daughter in high school, and she had narrowed it down to 3 dresses, and she's trying it on, and she's like, "Mom, this is the one." And I'm like, "It looks great. It looked better if you lost 5 pounds." Would I, in any universe, say that to my high school age daughter? No. So
Mhm.
why is that our internal monologue? And just being really cautious of everything you say to you, say it to your best friend, say it to your sister, say it to your daughter,
Mhm.
say it to, we would never, ever in a million years. And shame also, I mean, if you're feeling like you are wrong and you are broken and somehow you did this to yourself, which is impossible
Or
if,
caused it. Yeah,
or
right.
whatever, right? Yeah. Um, that internal monologue, the dialogue that we're telling ourselves, I would never say any of it to you, ever in a
Mhm.
million
Yeah.
years. But we do say that to ourselves. So I think it's really being cautious. And not that men don't do this, but I think women have just like cornered the market on negative self-talk. And um,
Particularly when it comes to our bodies, for sure.
100%, 100%. So, like I used NLP. I became a practitioner, and in the process of becoming a practitioner, you are the client, and
Mhm.
the goal is to have your biggest, baddest, ugliest thing that you want to really work through. And it
Yeah.
was the hardest and best thing that I've ever done. And I think
Hmm.
so. You had to go through that process while you were also struggling with infertility. And you're right, we're human. We're going to have moments of fear, shame, guilt, sadness, anger, whatever. Insert things here and not always have a perfect inner dialogue. But I think our awareness, it has to start with our awareness and our healing too. So
Hmm.
share your thoughts on that and how you did that.
Well, you know what? To be totally honest with you, when I became a fertility coach, I wasn't struggling anymore.
Mm,
I was moving through the motions of my fertility journey, absolutely, but I wasn't in the dirty suffering of it. I wasn't feeling less than anymore. I had really worked on a lot of my shame and perfectionism. And I kind of, through my coaching certification, I realized that our happiness doesn't come from circumstances working out. I mean, I don't know about you,
yeah.
but we often get what we want, and then we're like, hey, what's the next thing? And it's like, kind of
Check. Done.
kind of psychotic,
Right.
right? And so I had coached enough people. I have had been on my journey enough. I had seen enough, rich people feel like they don't have enough, or skinny people feel like they're not thin enough to know that once I get my baby, it's not going to just be problem free for the rest of my life anymore.
Yeah.
And I did end up having two babies, and my life is not problem free anymore. But the good news is that my fertility journey taught me these tools to cope, to move through life with less shame, not with no shame, but with less shame, and to know when to spot when my perfectionism is kind of rearing its head. So I think it's really, really probably maybe even the most powerful thing to know that if you are moving through fertility struggles, the biggest belief that creates the most suffering is believing that the baby is going to make you whole,
Oh
because
my gosh. No
it's
kidding.
right, it is not. It's actually going to do a lot of the opposite.
Yeah.
It's going to be this dismantle of your identity. Is it beautiful? Is it precious? Absolutely. But when we're looking to our children, to make us happy before it even happens, right? We're putting a lot of pressure on that little being. And if we can learn to relieve ourselves of this pressure that having a baby will make me whole, which I do in my programs, it's so settling to your mind and body connection, to your nervous system. It really helps you to feel like, okay, I don't have to hold on so tightly to that thing in order for me to be happy. And so we kind of can take our hand off of the pause button and get our lives back. And in turn, that has been shown to increase fertility. It is the best
Oh,
of both worlds, right? You hear the stories all the time, right? Like I
yep.
hear them daily. Oh, I decided I was going to just enjoy my life. I was going to take a break from it all and boom, pregnant. Or it's a very common thing for a reason. The good news is that the way I teach it and the way I got pregnant is I didn't have to stop trying to get pregnant. I could still take action. I could still be very intentional in wanting to get pregnant, but it was no longer a need. It became a happy, healthy desire.
You hear a lot about people who start the adoption process or the foster
Yeah.
care process. The second
Mm-hmm.
they take the stress and the fixation off of getting
Yeah.
pregnant and
Mm-hmm.
relax,
Mm-hmm.
then they get pregnant on their own. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
It's
love
not an
that.
uncommon story.
No, it's not. So you're right. I mean, I know the emotional part of it and the stress and the hanging on to it that we do to ourselves that makes it not happen. We're in like this vicious not happening cycle.
Yeah, but we do it to ourselves because of how we've been conditioned by our culture. And knowing that relieves the shame of feeling like, oh, I did this to myself. Like for me, it was like, oh, I'm not pregnant because of me. It's like, no, I'm using this journey as a catalyst to knowing my worth as a woman, regardless of
Right.
my reproductive status. And that is beautiful in and of itself.
That is beautiful. And I love that you were doing all of that and helping other women. And you had this
Mm.
happy ending that they all think is going to make the difference. I also really feel like the toughest things we go through in life are the things that can either make us feel more broken or make us feel like it's all teaching and learning, right? What did I learn and how can I teach it? Right.
Yes.
So the hardest things for us, that's you just became an expert in your field.
Yes,
If you think about it
exactly.
that way instead of that it's breaking you.
And that is all a decision in your mind, which is it's 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 simple, but it's also complicated because
It
it
is.
seems too easy. It's like, that can't just be a decision, but it can. And it,
Yeah.
and our decisions, they kind of guide our lives, they guide our actions, they guide our behaviors, they guide our emotions, which is what I teach inside of my program, right? How to, do I want to decide, do I want to lead my fertility journey with the belief that it's not working? And just every time I get my period, say it's not working, or every time a failed cycle comes, it's not working, which is very easy to do that.
Mhm.
Or what if I led with this belief that it's working, even if I don't see evidence yet,
Right.
even if I'm being challenged in this moment? And that is possible to believe that it's working. And your brain will find evidence that it is, even if it's not in a positive pregnancy test. Maybe the connection to your partner is deepening. Maybe you're noticing that your IBS symptoms are lessening. Maybe you're realizing that you're just a little bit more at peace every day. And so I love that thought, like it's working. What if I just chose to believe that it's all working out right now, even when it doesn't look like it to the physical world quite yet?
And it's different for everyone. My best friend from college, she and her husband decided not to have kids. And I remember her calling me like 24 years ago. I was pregnant for the fourth time, having my fourth daughter. And she's like, I don't know how to tell you this. I'm like, girl, I'm doing foster care. Don't have kids if you don't feel like you want kids. Don't ever feel guilty because you're not doing
Yeah,
2.3. And they
couldn't
had
agree
to come
more.
to that decision, right? That they were happy
Yes.
and comfortable without it.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter can't have kids without massive interventions. And one
Yeah.
of my other daughters offered to be a surrogate. And they realized through that process, they don't want to do it by force and they don't want to do it by surrogacy, and then to go through that sadness and be like, no, we're going to be the best aunts and uncles, and every one of their
Mm.
friends and siblings make them godparents. She's like, if
Mm.
all those people died, we'd have 8 kids.
Oh
in
my
the wills and
gosh.
the trusts, all their
Yeah.
friends and family members are like, if we die, we want you to
Mm.
take our kids. She's like, we'd
Mm.
have like 8 children all at once. It would be. But to let go of having it look a certain way, she gets pregnant and has a baby and raises the baby. What if she doesn't get pregnant? She's an incredible aunt and godmother and is in everybody's will and trust in case anything happens. And we don't want anything to happen, but if it does, she's the one that is trusted enough with other people's children and just living her life with her husband happily and having that be enough. So, I
Yes, I
mean, there's
love
all these
that.
different ways that it doesn't have to look your way, which you know, but I want other people to realize like you can decide not to become a parent because you don't want to be, or you can decide that you don't want to go through the process of 8 years of infertility and trying. I
Hmm.
mean, it can look different for everyone. So tell
Yeah.
me about your book, and then we have the website and the podcast. I love this. The coaching, I really just talk to us. I have the Amazon link. I have all the links, but for the book, and I know the book's also on your website. So share with us the writing of the book or what order did all these things happen in? I don't even know.
Yeah. So actually, I have the book right here because I brought it because I actually wrote half the book in Kona, Hawaii.
Oh,
Yeah. And so it was when I came here, I went with a writing coach and we wrote half of it. And I planned to bring the book to the lady who ran the retreat center that I wrote it at.
awesome.
And when I came here, I said, I can't wait to come back here to show this island to my family, to bring the book back to the lady who I connected with at the retreat center. It's kind of like this full circle moment for me. But I was, my husband and I, one of the beautiful gifts of the fertility journey is that we grew very deeply connected spiritually, emotionally. I know a lot of people will go away from each other, but we again used it as a catalyst. And we have this meeting called Best Life Planning once a month. And I was like, I gotta get this book out there. And he's like, then you go do it. Like he's like, do it, plan it this year. So a few months later, I traveled to Kona. I wrote half the book in a week, in about 5 days. And then I wrote the other half over the last few months and published it. And it has become a bestseller on Amazon. But it is the mind body approach to getting pregnant without it taking over your life. So, one of my deep inspirations was Alice Domar, and she runs the Domar Center of Harvard. And she had done so many studies on women and their health and how doctors would just look at their physical health. They wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
look at the health of their emotions. They wouldn't look at the health of their mental state, which doctors are not necessarily trained to do. So I have compassion and empathy for that. But she decided, what if I did some studies for women who were struggling with fertility, some research that shows what if we incorporated some mind-body techniques, some relaxation techniques? What if we created a support system for these women as opposed to them living in isolation and shame? What if we taught them how to do like some really cool deep breathing? What if we taught them CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to change their thoughts from for example, it's not working. Oh, it's not working. It's not working. It's not working. Noticing how much that belief changes your life versus what if it's working? What if it's always working? And how that changes your thoughts and behaviors. So she did these studies and she realized that it increased women's chances of getting pregnant by 55%,
Mm.
which is quite a startling
Huge.
number, right? And so I found a lot of inspiration in her research, which is one of the reasons why I decided to become a fertility coach. And then my clients started getting pregnant before I was even pregnant. And then eventually I ended up, so I did go through IVF, but so I have been through the really intense process of in vitro fertilization and the surgeries and the blood tests and the ups and the downs. And so I got pregnant on my first round, but then I had a miscarriage, which was so difficult. And then a few months after that, I had developed my program inside of Fertility Mind Body Mastery, which is my group coaching program. And after that, I did a frozen embryo transfer, and that didn't work. And so I thought, oh, I could use this as like just evidence of it's never going to happen. I'm never going to be a mother. Or I could meet my pain and my grief with like validation and understanding that this is really hard, that,
Mhm.
this is a really painful experience. but also hold space that everything is working, that this hasn't all been for nothing, and that I am feeling so much better in my mind and my body and my spirit. So I just kind of built this little like swirl of energy that it was working out. And then 2 months after that, I got pregnant naturally with my son, Beck, who is going to be 5 in March. And then a couple years after that, I got pregnant on my first try with my son, Jack. So it was like, yes, I went through an 8-year journey, but it gave me my career. It gave me my babies. It gave me back myself, like a very authentic life with myself where I'm no longer just following what everyone else does and whatever anyone else thinks is cool. And I'm doing my own thing, which really connects me to my nature versus our culture.
Mhm.
And it gave my husband his career too, actually, because he did a whole revamp of, okay, what actually, I have this space, what actually makes me happy? So my fertility journey, although one of the hardest things I've ever been through, actually ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. And I talk about it extensively in my book, Fertile Ground. There's 9 chapters, just like there's 9 months in a pregnancy. And it really is a beautiful, gentle way of incorporating mind body techniques. It's a progression from each chapter to feeling your feelings, to letting go of perfectionism,
Mhm.
to letting go of shame and feeling like you need to be performing and pleasing and perfecting all the time as a woman. To one other big thing is slowing your life down a little bit so that you can get really clear with yourself on what you need, how to deal with the uncertainty of the fertility journey, right? Like that's really a
Yeah.
big struggle is the uncertainty aspect. And I have a really beautiful chapter on that. I'd say that's probably everyone's most favorite chapter. And how to surrender, how to let go, how to be the vessel without feeling like you need to control and manipulate everything. And so the biggest review is like, I've learned so much. It's totally changed my perspective. And it's a dose of hope and positivity without being preachy, without being
Hmm.
like, hey, you just think positive, and then everything will happen, right? Like I tried doing that for so much of my fertility journey, and it was so awful because I can't. I'm a highly sensitive person. I need validation for my big, strong emotions. I need to know that I'm not broken for feeling heavy things. And so I think the book is really beautiful because it allows space for your humanity, but it also teaches you how to shape that into the life that you want, how to have the life that you want, how to take your hand off of the pause button and start living, and that actually does increase your fertility. So yeah, it's on Amazon and it's called Fertile Ground because that's what you're creating. Fertile ground for your baby, but for you and for the rest of your life, to be completely honest with you.
It's so interesting when you were talking about surrendering and letting go. That's exactly what labor's like. So as a doula, I
Exactly.
tell people
I
specifically,
love that.
labor is something that happens to you. You slowly lose control and it feels like it's happening to you. And you
Mm.
really just need to surrender to it and relinquish that control. And it's funny, infertility, when you said that, I was like, wow, that's an interesting parallel that you're using the same exact language in becoming pregnant as I use in the labor and delivery process, which
Yes.
I love.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
another correlation is the pain of the contractions, right?
yeah,
If they're not there the whole time, right?
right.
They're there for just a small moment and then they kind of leave. And then another wave comes and then it leaves. And I think that's what really helped me kind of hold space for my pain in the fertility journey and in my life is
Mm,
knowing it's just temporary.
right.
It's going to come for a bit. I need to feel it. I can resist it. And I can try and push it away. And what's going to happen? It's going
Worse.
to get 10 times worse.
Worse.
Or I could learn to feel my pain
Right.
and be in my body, which is like all about the mind body connection, right? Because we live
Right.
so much from the neck up. Could you imagine going into labor just all in your head?
I mean, I don't know how it would be possible, honestly. I And I'm very much more logic and visual and less feeling. So we're
Mm,
opposite. I have to really, not that I don't have feelings and it's not a natural part of my day, absolutely, but to be really highly sensitive and to feel feelings in such an intense way, I don't,
yeah.
that's not my struggle. And so
Mm-hmm.
me saying I can't imagine you living in your head for labor and delivery is a much bigger deal than someone who actually has more connection with feelings than I do. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to work. It is not going to
Mm-hmm.
work. The other thing I
Mm-hmm.
always thought about the infertility process, because I went into it, I was 20 years old and married,
Mm-hmm.
and I had gone a year with no miscarriages, no pregnancies,
Yeah.
no cycles, no nothing. Like nothing was happening for a year,
Mm-hmm.
no birth control. And so I automatically was an infertility case. They sent you there, but we really wanted to have
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And why I mean my first thought after that was like, why don't they connect you with a therapist? Or
Mm.
like you said, a support group, because when you're like, oh yeah, sure, let's do this stuff, let's start infertility, you have no idea, even if they explain it, same as labor and delivery, and there's no way through but through. And it's like explaining to somebody what salt tastes like if they've never tasted salt. You can try to do it, but until they taste the salt, they're not going to get it. And
Mm-hmm.
infertility and labor and delivery are exactly like telling somebody what salt tastes like. It's nearly impossible to really explain it until you experience it. And I think we get so blindsided by the infertility journey,
Yes.
and that it's not just physical. And I remember coming out being like, no IVF, I'm done, wean me off everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and thinking, why is there not support for this? Because
Yeah.
until you do it, you don't understand how much you need, like really need. And it's just not given to people at all.
Yeah.
It's sort of like C-sections, there's no PT. There's a PT for your ankle surgery.
Yes.
Like we're just lost in this world. Like, okay, I'm just going to be walking it
Mm.
off.
Yeah.
And so I love that you brought up the support. That's what doulas do in birth, but and I have a
Exactly.
and I can give you a referral to a physical therapist. But
Yes.
why isn't this happening on the front end? Why aren't we front loading this stuff? And man, infertility was like a 2x4 to the head, and there was no
Yeah.
support. It was
Yeah.
very isolating and alone
Yeah.
and terrifying. So I'm so grateful that you talk about that so much because it's vital. And
Yeah.
you don't know, and you don't even know what questions to ask when you're going through it.
Yeah. First of all, I'm sorry you had to go through that because it's
Mm.
it's already isolating,
Right.
right? Then, add on fertility treatments. But I think that's why I started my program, Fertility Mind Body Mastery, because women collectively, we join once a week and we talk about it. We fucking talk about it,
Mm,
like and I really believe for so many of us, we don't even need answers per se. We just want to be heard. We just want to be validated
yeah.
in what it is that we're going through and how hard it is. And and I think that's part of the healing is just being seen exactly as you are and not necessarily always needing that to be fixed and changed and made better. Sometimes the healing is just being able to have yourself be seen for exactly who you are and not judged. And I think that's what women take away most out of the program is it's the one place in the world where I could really just show up and be me and no one's going to judge me for that. And it's this beginning of this relationship that you can have with yourself where you can be vulnerable, right? Because I don't know about you, like journey brings up all these vulnerabilities that you're like trying
Right.
to hide behind you for your whole life until your fertility journey is like, no, actually, we're going to talk about stuff. We're going to get it out there. So it's really powerful to have the social support and the connection with other women who are not only on their fertility journeys, but who are choosing a mind body approach, meaning they're wanting to, feel connected and present in their lives now. They're wanting to feel at peace now. They're not wanting to withhold it until they get pregnant anymore. And so not only are you connecting with other women who are trying to conceive, but women who are also really wanting to like make the most of this journey into something bigger than just getting pregnant.
Thank you for sharing your story. I just love it. And you do the podcast and coaching as well as the book. Your website is amazing, and
Thank
cannot
you.
wait to read this book. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah.
It's something that comes up so much more often than people realize and just isn't spoken about enough, like kind of like all women's health, I think. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Spencer.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I had said to you, I think a doula is so invaluable.
No.
I had one, I didn't have one from my first, and then I had one for my second. And it wasn't just labor prep for me that I loved it. It was actually the pregnancy, anxieties I would have. I would
Mm-hmm.
just talk to my doula and she would just relieve me of it in either realizing it was very normal and
Yes.
alleviating me of the shame, or just feeling really like prepared for labor.
Yeah.
So I love the work you do too. And I love the work we're doing for women in all parts of their lives, right?
Me too. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Thank you.